This is part 4 of the Datapack series. Today, the focus is going to be on something that you might have thought about at one point or another, but you may not have been able to put a formal name on what it is. Suppose that a zombie spawns, and this is a zombie that is a baby zombie that does not have the ability to break doors, is wearing full leather armor. How would you represent that with code? What I'm trying to say is, suppose you wanted to spawn a zombie exactly like that. How would you do it? Well, the answer is with something called NBT. Now, this isn't a non-fungible whatever. NBT is short for a named binary tag. And it's a series of tags stored by the game for all entities that have that represent some sort of mechanism. Like, for instance, if a mob doesn't have an AI, that can be represented. If an armor stand is invisible, if its arms show, what pose it's in, there's a lot of things that you can represent with NBT data. So let me hop into the world and I'll show you what I mean. This one is going to be a lot more focused on... This one's going to be a lot more focused on in-game stuff rather than data packs, because this one is a lot easier to explain without writing stuff in code. Let's start by spawning a creeper. The command of the hour is the data command. You can do data, and then your options are either get, merge, modify, or remove. And then I'm going to do get for now, entity, and I'm going to do any creeper. Notice it's red, even though the syntax is correct. Look at this error message. Only one entity is allowed. This is very important to keep in mind. It's why execute commands are almost required for a lot of uses of this command. And because I just want to look at all of the data right now, I'm just going to do open bracket, close bracket, spawn in a creeper, and voila. There's a lot to go over here. Let me just go through it bit by bit. Brain, to my knowledge, brain is actually unused by most mobs. It's specifically used for mobs with complex behaviors like, I think, pandas and axolotls. And a lot of the newer mobs use them, but none of the older mobs do. Hurt by timestamp, whatever, from the time that it was hit, when's the next time that it got hit, attributes about them, like what's its movement speed, base modifiers. Don't worry about a lot of these. Random spawn bonus, there's a follow range. Fall flying is meant for elytra. Invulnerable is... Give me a moment, actually, because I think this will be better if you can actually see my cursor. Is it working? Okay, awesome. Invulnerable, and I can hide the cursor after the sub. Invulnerable is what it says in the tin. While a mob is invulnerable, it cannot be damaged by anything outside of players in creative mode. Portal cooldown is pretty self-explanatory. Absorption amount, if a mob has absorption, either manually through modifying its data or with the absorption status effect. Fall distance, death time, drop chances of the items it's holding. Persistence required, whether or not the mob can despawn. This is one of the ones I'm going to dwell on a bit. This is what is known as the UUID. This is a very strange thing. Every single mob in Minecraft's world has a unique identifier. And we can get this identifier and use it in commands, but it's a bit of a pain to work with, because as you can see, it's not one value. It's actually stored as 4. And they're all stored as integers from the looks of it. I feel like you could also store them as a long, but I don't think the system can read longs. And longs are just numbers that can store a lot more values than integers, because integers can only go up to 2 billion. Longs can go up to something like, I don't even remember, it's some insanely large amount. You use longs almost specifically because of that. You use longs mainly for the things that would require very large inputs, or that could require large inputs even. Fuse is pretty self-explanatory. Once the creeper is primed, that fuse is going to tick down to 0. When it hits 0, the creeper will explode. Motion is represented by 3 values. Because this is a 3D environment, it's represented by what's known as a vector. Every frame, not tick, mind you, but frame, these 3 values are applied to the current motion of the creeper. So it would, from that point where I just spawned it, it would move 0 blocks in the X direction, 0 blocks in the Y direction, and... I'm looking at the wrong thing. 0 blocks in the Y direction, in the X direction, Z direction, and a little tiny bit down in the Y direction. Health, left-handed. It has a certain amount of air. On ground, ignited, rotated. Position, fire, hurt time. Can pick up loot. Explosion radius. That was a lot of time. Okay, let's actually do things now, because that got very, very dull. So suppose I wanted to charge this creeper. So if you notice, charged isn't actually in there. And it's not a separate enemy either. Like if I do summon, I can't do summon charged creeper. Some data is not actually present yet, because if you notice, tags wasn't in there either. But what I can do is I can do data modify. Charged. That's probably lowercase. Set value 1. Is it capital? It's probably capital. I'm toying around with it a bit because I don't rightly remember. That's all wrong. No, that's all wrong. Okay. Okay. Plan B. Oh, come on. For some reason, every time I do... OBS does not like it when I make a new tab in Chrome. Let's consult the Minecraft wiki. Not scoreboards, but just the wiki itself. Now let's go to Creeper. And then there should be entity data. Oh, it's mocking me. Great. Right next to it is the thing. Powered. Okay, this is what I'm looking for. Notice that it says may not exist, and in our case, it didn't exist. So the thing that we're looking for is powered. So let me tab back over into Minecraft and apply this. And there we go. Now, make sure that mob griefing is off, because I'm about to do something quite stupid. Hey, look at me, Thank you. Oh yeah, I feel like it's worth mentioning. You can press F3 and F4 at the same time, and it'll bring up this little window where you can cycle between all the game modes, which is nice. I'm going to stay in creative mode for now. Alright, that is one thing done. The second application that I want to go over is custom names. This is a very useful one. Instead of a creeper, let's go with a zombie this time. Spawn over here, and let's try to give him a custom name. And I can just work off of my previous stuff, find anything that is a zombie, limit of 1, and go to custom name, set value. Let's just name him Moron. Now, you would think, because entities can display in the chat if they kill you, you would think that it would work, right? I'm just gonna let this guy run my health down. It actually didn't. And let me show you why. there's another command that I can run here called custom name, or there's another bit of data that I can add called custom name visible. If I set its value to 1, then it will always show. You might notice he's still named Zombie. That's because this is improper syntax, even though it doesn't show it. It needs to be in JSON format. Now, JSON format is a nightmare to work with, but this is correct. So now, hello, moron. Let's make the spelling even more simple. It's moron. And I could also add some custom, I think if I do a comma. The hardest part is just spelling the word off the shaded. Yeah, it worked! This is the, like, corrupted text that you see sometimes. So his name is now... Now... swap that over to bold instead. It's now moron. With a proper chest voice. Thank you for your time, moron. Appreciate your help. So now that's taken care of, let's see if we can apply this. And let's see if we can do something with NBT. And I kind of did this last video, but this time I want to do something a little bit different. Let's tab over into Notepad. What I want to do with this one is make it so that while I'm holding a netherite pickaxe, let's see, I'll emit particles of stone, let's say, like stone bricks or something. The way you do this is execute as @e. Oops, it's players, so I can just do @a. NBT of player NBT is weird. Let me clear this up first because it's strange. It's very strange. Let me also preemptively, let's make a chest. Oops. Make a chest, clear out my inventory preemptively. You'll see why I'm an idiot. Clear out my inventory preemptively. You will see why in a moment. Data get entity @a, I'll @s. Here's the main issue. Recipe book takes up a ton of space, and to be displayed also takes up a ton of space. But there's a lot of stuff here that wouldn't normally be here. Like, for instance, fly speed, may fly, insta build, which is ticked because I'm in creative mode, may build because I'm not in adventure mode, walk speed, where are you? These two are actually very useful. Is Furnace GUI open? Is GUI open? Is Furnace filtering craftable? Is Blasting Furnace, Smoker Furnace craftable? XP seed, XP total, game type, scene credits. There's a lot of interesting stuff here. The reason why I clear out my inventory is that inventory will also take up a ton of space. Let me just add some things in my inventory, run this again. That's a lot, especially if you have a full inventory that can clog up the entire chat log. But the way that it represents that I'm holding an item is with the selected item NBT. And then from there, it's the exact same stuff that I was using last video. Minecraft netherite pickaxe @s run particle item stone bricks ~22205. Let's make it a bit more flamboyant than usual. It's only gonna be a one-off. Reload. Grab my trusty pickaxe. And now, does it work? It does! Amazing. While we're on the subject of NBT, there's something very important that I need to bring up. A very important limitation. Player NBT cannot be modified in any way. If I try to, I'm going to get an error message. If I do data modify entity, suppose I want to make myself soar like an eagle and give myself a whole bunch of motion in the y direction. Be motion 1 rather. Set value to F. No. It does not let me. The reason is, it is unable to modify player data. So, what do we do? Well, a lot of the time, the answer is workarounds. For instance, with my... excuse me. With my explosive crossbow data pack, I summoned an armor stand, gave it the stuff that I needed, which was the motion and the ability to destroy itself when it wasn't moving anymore, and just had it teleport to the player over and over and over again. You have to deal with workarounds like that, and unfortunately, there's no way to modify player NBT without using a few select workaround commands. One of them is slash attribute, but slash attribute is a monster to work with. Suppose I want to up my movement speed. Base is easy. I can do get, it's at like 0.1 right now. Set, I'll make it 0.11. And if you notice, my field of view actually changed slightly because that's how the game works. So if I make it 1, whoop, I am now in Quake mode. God, that looks so strange. 1, and if I make it, let's make it like negative 0.1 or something. I literally cannot move. I can jump, I can move while jumping though, which is strange. That's all well and good, but everything else is a nightmare, because get is fine. Modifier, on the other hand, add, that requires a UUID, remove, requires a UUID, and value, get, also requires a UUID. So I could theoretically work with this, but it's so hacky and difficult to work with. So I'm not going to bother. As for my other option is /tag, and tag is very, very helpful. Suppose I want to give the player a tag, some tag that I could call back to later. I'll give myself the tag test. And now if I do tag list, I'll have one tag, test. Now, suppose that I want to do execute as @e tag equals test, @s run, say hello. It works because I have that tag of test, but suppose that I remove it, then try that command again. Nothing happens. This is a very useful way to cut down on some code, because suppose that I had that code from before with selected item. What I could do instead, let's copy this code real quick and make it not. And then execute as @a tag equals, let's do holding pickaxe. You can refactor this a bit. Tag @s add holding pickaxe, tag @s remove holding pickaxe. I use this syntax very often. reload, the code still works exactly the same. And if I list my current tags, I have a tag called holding pickaxe, but only while I'm holding out that pickaxe, as you would probably guess. It makes the code much more readable, which is very, very important. The last thing I want to bring up is something called store. Store is weird. Store is extremely weird. I used it when I was making the throwable stones, but let me go into a bit more depth about what it actually does. Actually, it's best to do this in game. Execute store result or store success. Entity. There are ways you can store it within a block, within a boss bar, an entity, a score, or storage. I'm going to go with entity here. Let's do execute as @e type equals zombie. @ s. Store success entity. @s. Heal f. Byte 1. So what this is doing is it's storing, if it's a success it will return a 1, otherwise it'll return a 0. Store that as an entity within all of these zombies with their health. And then run. Say @e type equals. Let's do players, actually. It'll be easier to test. Tag equal. No. This equals. What did I do? Spawn a bunch of zombies. Apologies for the noise. It's not ELF, is it? Oh, you know what I could do? Motion to double 1. That's actually hilarious. Motion 1, double 1. Amazing. That's strange. Oh, it's still running it even if I'm not there. Oops. Let's do if entity @e @a distance equals 1. There we go. So it works if I get within range. And it launches them into the air, and suppose I want to make that number even higher, I can set it to 2. And I can make it distance of 3. And then, hey guys, I don't like you. You're going to space. You're also going to space. All of you are going to space. Mark my words. Come on. Mark my words. It's another way you can optimize your code, though. I'll get into why this optimization is important maybe a bit later. Because it's not that important while there's this little code that I have written out. Oh, and there's tons of code you have to start worrying about efficiency. Let's do kill @e type equals player. Run it twice. You have to start worrying about efficiency with a lot of these. Because the less efficient your code is, the slower it's going to run when you get to larger and larger and larger amounts of code. So being able to optimize it is key. You need to be able to, if you have, I don't know, stuff forming functions and all of them have 10 commands, but there's some redundant code in there, you can bridge that gap by just making a function that you call that has that redundant code in both. With that, the amount of code that you have to write goes down by quite a bit, so I don't know. Set the time today real quick. Suppose you have 10 here, you have 10 here, you have 9 here, and you have 27 here. And there's some redundant code here. You can write a function that has 4 of those lines of code. Suddenly, this goes down to 6, and this goes down to, I can count, 5. If this is running every single frame, that's a very large improvement. Even if it doesn't look like it. But regardless, that's a question for another day. I fear these will gradually get longer and longer and longer, but I'll wrap it up now, so that it doesn't get too long. Regardless, that is about all I got for this video. Again, I'm at a bit of a loss for words. Don't forget to like and subscribe, haha. I don't know. Do it at your own leisure. Thanks for watching, y'all.